It is book review time. Today I'm here to share with you all my review of Myrren's Gift by Fiona McIntosh. Hello everyone, it is Samantha and I hope you guys are having a wonderful day today. I am here today to share with you guys a book review because I'm trying to be good and do more reviews, so yay for being, responsible. Today I'm going to be reviewing Myrren's Gift by Fiona McIntosh, book 1 in the Quickening trilogy by Fiona McIntosh. I picked Myrren's Gift up on a whim whilst I was perusing the shelves at Powell's, and I'm very glad I did because it turns out this book is pretty great. I really enjoyed it. Myrren's Gift is the first book in a fantasy trilogy. It follows our main character of Wild Thirsk. Wild Thirsk is the son of Fergus Thirsk, and the Thirsk family has served as Morgavia's generals for generations. They're basically the right-hand men to the king, and they help serve this warring nation because Morgavia is pretty much constantly at war with the neighboring country of Briaville. And when this story picks up, Fergus Thirsk has actually just been mortally wounded while in a battle against the country of Briaville. So the king and him withdraw from the field, and Fergus's dying request to the king, and he invokes a blood oath from the king, is to protect his son Weil and bring him up at the palace, help him to become the new general of the Legion, and to become best friends with the king's own son. So the story really picks up as Weil, young 14-year-old Weil, journeys to the capital city to start to learn to become the general of the Legion and to begin his relationship with Salamis, the heir. But he soon discovers that Salamis is unfortunately a very cruel, self-centered, vindictive, selfish, you name it, person, and they do not get along whatsoever. Salamis basically has it out for Weil. So though Weil tries his best to become friends with Salamis, he soon becomes resigned to the fact that he'll never be friends, and he tries to just keep it at a show of respect, even though they basically mutually detest each other. A few months after Weil's arrival, a young girl has been brought up on charges of witchcraft. There has been many, many years since a witch has been burned, but the heir basically ensures that this young girl, Myrren, will be tortured for her supposed crimes of witchcraft. He brings Weil to the torture chamber in order to watch her torture and subsequently to be burned in order to kind of break him, and because Weil is a rather sensitive young man. Weil instead ends up showing compassion for this young girl, Myrren, and right before she is burned at the stake, Myrren acknowledges his compassion and blesses him with a gift. Shortly after this, the story picks up about 5 years after this event, and this is when the story really starts to take off. Weil soon discovers what exactly this gift is, and it has more sinister intentions than he first thought, and it really complicates his life in a very mysterious way. At the same time, Salamis really becomes into his own as the new young king, and his treacherous side begins to show as he basically sets out to dismantle every aspect of Weil's life as well as his friends and loved ones. The story becomes one of revenge and mystery and a little bit of romance, and it was one that I actually ended up really quite enjoying. I really enjoy Fiona McIntosh's writing style. She writes in a very engaging way that makes you super invested in the story. She doesn't really have a lot of flowery words. She kind of really gets to the plot and to the story, so you're kind of immersed into it fairly quickly, and events really start to kind of stack up. There's a lot happening in the first part of the book, and you're kind of figuring out how this is all going to come out into play because there's so many different strings and threads of the plot that are kind of branching off, which I really, really enjoyed. It made for a very fast-paced book. It looks like a chunky book, but it actually was a fairly quick read. I have started using the Book Out app, which tracks your reading time, how long it takes you to read a book, and it's only took me like 10 hours to read, which is pretty quick for me for a 600-page book. So you get really into the story, and it goes really, really quick, which I really quite enjoyed. I also really enjoyed her characters. Most of the story is from Weil's perspective. It's a third-person narrative, but it is from his perspective. And I really like Weil as a character. He's a very sensitive person that has a lot of compassion and empathy for his fellow man, but is also at the same time having to struggle against the exact opposite of his character, which is Salamis, of course. So it's interesting to see him struggle against these things, as well as struggling with this gift/curse that Myrren has left him with. So most of the characters are pretty fantastic. Weil, of course, is probably the most well-rounded. It has a lot of really great villainous characters. Not only Salamis, but some others are added as well. The other monarchs of the surrounding nations, such as Kaliak, who is king of the Mountain Kingdom, and Valentina, who is the queen of Briaville. And All of the monarchs are very fascinating. Are all driven by different motivations, and they all have kind of they have very different personalities, and you can kind of see how all of these kingdoms are going to start to clash. So it set up for a very epic plot to come in the future books. So though I enjoyed the story, there are some things that I didn't much care for. Towards the end of the book, it did start to get pretty romancy, which I don't mind a lot of romance in my books, and it wasn't like a lot of sex scenes or anything like that. It was just like, oh, I'm swooning love and stuff, which it's not bad. It was just a little bit overdone, I think. Another thing that she does that I'm actually undecided on whether or not I like is she does a lot of very obvious foreshadowing. For example, she'll say, Weil thought that he could just travel to this kingdom unhindered, for example. And then the next sentence will be, but he was wrong. And then it will branch into whatever happens. So she does a lot of like really forceful foreshadowing that's kind of like in your face. Like you already know something bad's gonna happen because she set it up. So I'm not quite sure if I like that. I mean, it's definitely an interesting way to tell the story, not something you encounter a whole lot, like really obvious foreshadowing. So if you like that, you will probably like this book then, but I'm still undecided on whether or not that's something that I like as a plot device. Another thing about this book that I enjoy, but I can see how others might not, is that it's kind of tropey fantasy. So you definitely have the evil characters and you have the good guys, and everybody very much solidly falls into those blocks. There are some more morally gray characters, but they're few and far between. Instead, you kind of have the good versus evil thing going on, which I kind of like. Traditional tropey fantasy. It's kind of like comfort fantasy for me, so that's why I really enjoyed this book. But if that's not really your thing, if you like something a little bit new and fresh, then you might not like this story as much. Another thing that I think this book lacked on was a description of the world in which this took place. There is some description, but it wasn't very rich or very detailed. It was definitely more focused on the characters and the events. So if you like more world building, this book wouldn't really be for you. I tend to like a little bit more of a descriptive world building, but because the plot and the pace of the books and the characters are very engrossing, it kind of made up for that a little bit. So it did lack a little bit in world building, but it kind of made up for that in terms of plot and characters. So overall, I ended up rating this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. The plot itself, I gave 4 stars. Her writing, I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars. The characters, I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars. The world in which this took place, I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars for an overall rating of 3.5 out of 5 stars. I definitely really enjoyed it while I was reading it. I can definitely acknowledge that it did have some problems and it was lacking in many areas, but it's one that I'm definitely excited to see how the story will progress. The way it ended is definitely setting up for a very epic ending in the next 2 books that I'm very excited for. So I think it definitely will be getting better as the series goes on. All right, everyone, that is it for my review of Myrren's Gift by Fiona McIntosh. I hope you guys enjoyed it and I gave you a better idea of what this book is and what it's about. You have to let me know if you read this book and what your thoughts are, or if you want to read it, or whatever you feel like throwing down in the comments, you feel free to do so. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely day. Until next time, happy reading. Bye!